Welcome everyone, this is Julie Lindsay and we are here with Mozart G, who is the 13-year-old trilingual global traveller and 45 countries, 5 continents across 8 years. Really delighted, Mozart, that you are going to be here with us during this session. Some conference reminders for everybody who is in the room. Thank you once again for coming in. I think if you've been during other presentations during this conference, you're very familiar with this already. Thank you to our sponsors. We are in the last day of the conference. Thank you to all the people who have sponsored and supported this event. And I'm going to give you permission now to write on the whiteboard, so if you would like to put your mark on the board, that would be great. I'm actually based over here on the east coast of Australia, and if you can grab a smiley face or something on the whiteboard there and put where you're based, that would be great. So we've got Canada, we've got West Coast of Canada, we've got USA, we've got Asia, and we've got South America. Excellent. Okay, that's great. All right, let's keep moving here. And we're going to go to our slides, and I would like to welcome Mozart to the microphone, and thank you, Mozart. Over to you.
Hi, my name is Mozart. I'm really thrilled and honored to be here to talk about my experience of growing up as a trilingual global citizen with a unique educational path. I hope it can inspire others, as I wish every child could travel the world. Thanks so much for coming, and I send you all warm tropical sunshine from Malaysia, where it's 9 a.m. this Friday morning. One of the many perks of being a global kid is celebrating cool birthdays abroad, and I just had my 13th in Sydney with a paleo cake and learned to play and bought a didgeridoo. It was my 9th country and 4th continent for celebrating a birthday. Lucky me! John Holt said, "There's no difference between living and learning. It's impossible and misleading and harmful to think of them as being separate." And the way my parents raised me, I think it's true, as we are lifelong learners who seem to be constantly learning, even when we're playing or celebrating. Travel and learning. As my mom says, family travel is often about doing ordinary things in extraordinary places. Or Radmacher, who says, "I'm not the same, having seen the moon shine on the other side of the world." Or Bolaño, who says, "Every 100 feet, the world changes." I think it's really hard to travel and not learn. As great as tech is, I think it's difficult to get a truly global education without actual physical world travel, and we think it needs to start young. Certainly participating in cultural festivals at home, learning languages, studying cultures via books, domestic travel, etc. helps, and is a good start, as that is how my parents started with me as first. One year, we took some disadvantaged school kids from Harlem and the New York City area with us virtually through volunteering with Reach the World, and have collaborated with many teachers and homeschool groups which can help kids who don't have travel opportunities. We find that children seem to really relate to another kid traveling, so I'm open to those kinds of opportunities to give back, and I'm writing a series of kids books for every country we've traveled to. How did I end up becoming a global education pioneer? I've always been on my own track, so I walked and bilingually talked, starting at 6 months old, began violin at 23 months, reading at 2 years old, and piano at 3. Thus, finding ways to educate me was a bit of a challenge for my parents. My preschool teacher tested me at reading at a 3rd grade level at 3, and our pediatrician advised my parents to go by my development and not my age. So I skipped ahead 3 grades in both a private and public school. But that wasn't quite right either. so my parents decided to homeschool. Then, they thought, if they were going to homeschool, they might as well do it around the world. So they decided to take the huge risk of retiring early, selling everything to educate me, and have more time together. That was 2005. I was 5, and we've been traveling ever since. Most well-traveled kid? Some have called me the most well-traveled kid in the world because I've been traveling 8 years straight, my entire primary years, to 45 countries on 5 continents, as well as my fluent languages and deep cultural immersion. I have seen and experienced much of our planet, circling it more than once. I likely have the record for the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites on 5 continents, world-class museums, and ancient ruins seen by a kid. I've been in local schools in 4 countries in several languages, and I'm probably the only kid since Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart to do extensive world travel with the violin and piano. But it has all just seemed like normal life to me. I think I'm now just beginning to understand just how lucky I've been, and I so appreciate all that I have seen, my beautiful friends around the world, and so much time with my family. I'm an only child and very social, so my parents have set up a slow international travel method that has us returning to places often with many homes around the world. So I keep long-term friendships in several languages. We travel and live well on a budget of just $23 a day per person. We love the quote by Hunt that says, "Traveling in the company of those we love is home in motion," because it suits our life view perfectly. Time for change and latest trends. Sir Kent Robinson says, "We have sold ourselves into a fast food model of education, and it's impoverishing our spirit and our energy as much as fast food is depleting our physical bodies." And I agree. I think it's time for a change, and it's on the way. One sign is brand new expensive schools, which cost over $80,000 a year, which are allowing wealthy people to get a more global education. This is similar to how the privileged aristocrats in the past did it with their grand tours of Europe for months or years in search of culture, education, and the roots of Western civilization. Today's ruling class educational trends are mobile schools that encourage travel immersion and feature Spanish and Mandarin learning as a priority. But you don't have to be rich to see the world and get a first-class immersion global education. You can be a very ordinary family like mine, and this location-independent lifestyle is a growing trend. Studies show 50 million workers both could and want to telework. Regular telecommuting grew by 79.7% between 2005 and 2012. 3.3 million people from the U.S., not including the self-employed or unpaid volunteers, consider home their primary place of work. And as the saying goes, if you can work at home, you can work in Rome, or anywhere else. There is a tsunami of change coming as people learn that thanks to emerging tech, we can all work, school, and live anywhere. And it's a greener choice, which makes me so happy. Green advantages to our planet. I have long had a passion for green and sustainable living, perhaps from all that I have seen in my travels. At 10, I won an English elocution contest at my 1,000-kid Chinese school for a speech I wrote and gave about how we can all work together to create a happier green planet. I will leave that video at the end. Because we carry a minimal lifestyle, a few things, and travel the world with just carry-on luggage, we live a very low carbon footprint lifestyle. Telecommuters, known as digital nomads, are the most agile, green, and versatile types of employees. So not only is it more fun, but it solves many of our planet's problems when we are living in a way that saves resources like gas and cars to drive to work in heavy traffic. I don't think the current wired generation of millennials and my generation wants a life like Goodman's famous quote. Normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work and driving through traffic in a car that you're still paying for in order to get to the job. You need to pay for the clothes and the car and the house you leave vacant all day so you can afford to live in it. Better way and advantages for teachers. There really is a better way, and I'm living it. More and more people are heading in this direction, from Gen Yers to families and baby boomers. Teachers actually have it easier than most to do this slow travel lifestyle due to summers off, sabbaticals, distant learning and teaching, international schools, and teaching English around the world. I'm not only a student, I'm also a teacher and entrepreneur since I was 12, so I'm already doing this as we roam the world. I teach students on 3 continents in Mandarin, Spanish, and English from 4 to 30 years old, including a geophysicist, in person and online via Skype. I love it and make good money for a kid my age. It's a myth that travel is expensive. We travel the world much cheaper than we ever lived at home. If you stay at a 5-star resort, travel can be expensive, but in many places around the world, one can live well on very little. Most people dream about traveling around the world, yet few realize how easy and inexpensive it can be for almost anyone. We know a family on a limited income with 8 kids and a grandpa who did it. A single mom with 5 young adopted kids doing it. Families with severe health challenges who do it, and more. If there is a will, there is always a way. As John Gatto says, you either learn your way towards writing your own script in life, or you unwittingly become an actor in someone else's script. What's the global education? I hope to demonstrate how and why a global education is a benefit for children, families, and our planet. It's a critical 21st century issue on so many levels. Sir Ken Robinson says, whatever education is, it should make you a unique individual, not a conformist. It should furnish you with an original spirit with which to tackle the big challenges. It should allow you to find values which will be your roadmap through life. It should make you spiritually rich, a person who loves whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whomever you're with. It should teach you what is important, how to live, and how to die. And Mr. Rogers says, we want to raise our children so they can get a sense of pleasure in both their own heritage and the diversity of others. Why second language learning is key and must start young. I know firsthand that one cannot know a culture without knowing the language. In order to be a global citizen and build greater trust and understanding between the diverse people of our world, being truly fluent in more than one language is essential. Thus, I think we need to learn at least a second dominant language, and that is easiest done starting as early as possible. MIT linguist Pinker says it best. One free lunch in the world is to learn another language in early childhood. Luckily, my monolingual parents started teaching me my Chinese and Spanish when I was in the womb, as my mother had read that in utero babies start learning languages at only 3 months gestation when hearing develops. I enjoyed it so much that I used to do happy kicks on my mom's belly whenever I heard Spanish or Chinese, and somehow even then I knew it was different. We have a funny family story where my parents actually used my happy kick on hearing Spanish to get me to move during my first ultrasound photo session when my mom was pregnant because I was in a position that covered my gender, and my parents wanted to know. They decided to try the Spanish story, Tres Osos, to see if I would respond. Sure enough, I gave them happy kicks, which changed my position and let them know that I was a girl. As Dr. Steiner, MD, says, babies are wired for language. The earlier they're introduced to a second language, the easier it will be for them to pick it up. When these children get to school age, they tend to have superior reading and writing skills in both languages, as well as better analytical and academic skills. Tips for adding language, raising bilinguals. We think it would be great if everyone had second language immersion classes for pregnant mothers, and every preschool should have assistants who are native speakers of another dominant language. Then carry that out all through elementary school. This would be fairly easy to do with Spanish in the USA and French in Canada, helping kids be better prepared for our multilingual, multicultural world. Despite having monolingual parents and spending my first 5 years in a very blue-eyed blonde kind of California beach town, I was already fluent in Spanish before we even traveled to Spain or outside of the USA. So the options are really open to all if you look and make it a priority. A Montessori preschool that I went to hired only native-speaking Spanish speakers as assistants, and they only spoke to the kids in Spanish, while the primary teacher spoke in English. The monolingual parents were absolutely amazed at how easily their toddlers are becoming fluent in Spanish just by hearing it, and the smart ones continued to promote it as we did by hiring only Spanish-speaking babysitters in other ways. From the time I was born, my parents took me to a Spanish-only playgroup that had all native-speaking Latino immigrants from various countries who wanted to raise their children as bilinguals and not lose the heritage language. Socially, that was very isolating for my mom because her Spanish is almost non-existent, despite being an A student in Spanish all through high school. But she felt it worth the sacrifice to do whatever it took to create a second language immersion environment for me, even while in the USA. We found a Spanish-only speaking church and Sunday school for native speakers, so my dad drove me over an hour each way every Sunday so that I could be immersed in that Spanish environment. One of my first words as a baby was biblioteca, because my dad always took me to the library for Spanish reading time. At the end of the presentation, I will link to a YouTube video that shows me learning Spanish at 4 days old, doing great at 18 months, reading well in Spanish at 7 in Spain, and today. Creating an immersion environment at home. We think travel is an essential part of becoming a global citizen and global learner, but much of it can begin at home without any travel and on a low budget. Here are the things my parents did to create a second language immersion environment at home. One parent only talking in the other language, playing music in the other language, reading books aloud in the other language, watching TV/movies in the other language, playing tapes of the parent who speaks the language when they are away, making sure the child always responds back, not just understanding, helping the child know how to respond if needed, reading and writing daily when the child is old enough, have friends talk to them only in the other language. Even though my father's Spanish is not fluent, he still managed to do the one parent in the second language method up until I was 2 and a half, and we supplemented that with as many native speakers and environments that we could find. At that point, I was more verbal than he could keep up with in Spanish, so it was getting in the way of our relationship. Thus, he had to go back to mostly English. Also around that time, my parents had to drop the Chinese. I was getting fluent at that point in Mandarin as well, but it was difficult time-wise to do the work required. It will be a lot easier for me to pass on both Spanish and Chinese onto my children, and hopefully them passing it on for many generations. How language learning fosters world peace. I am a Latina, So I'm especially grateful to have my heritage language be so much a part of me, and I'm grateful that my parents worked hard to give it to me. Spanish in Spain is part of me, as much as English and being an American. My paternal grandparents' first language is Spanish, and all that they spoke until they entered school. But it wasn't the custom in the 50s to pass it on, so fluency was lost for my father and his sister. My great-grandmother was the beloved matriarch of the extended family and would only speak Spanish, so my dad picked up some and has studied it to increase. But it is sad that he missed out on the comfort I have with the language. We are happy that, through me, it doesn't have to be lost anymore and can continue in our family line forever. One of the highlights of our world trip was when my paternal grandfather came to visit us on his 80th birthday with my aunt, and it was their first time visiting Spain. My grandpa would never talk to me in Spanish in America, but in our little village in Spain, everyone only talked Spanish, so he easily lapsed back into his Spanish. That was so fun. My grandpa has passed on now, but that memory lives with me forever. Another highlight for me was when my perky 83-year-old grandmother came to stay with us in Asia for 6 weeks and celebrated Chinese New Year with us. We even got interviewed on Chinese TV, dressed in our traditional dresses or qipa, which was a first for her. My Chinese also means a lot to me, and it was wonderful to travel to China the first time and be fluent in the language. Caucasians are rare in China, even in Beijing, and Caucasians speaking, reading, and writing fluently in Mandarin are even more rare. So it was extraordinary and delightful to see the reactions of the local folks when I could converse with them. They would smile and laugh so much, so I got a big kick out of it too. I'm pretty good at bargaining from markets around the world, so it was really funny to surprise the sellers there by both my Chinese and good bartering skills. I met so many people who had never even seen a Caucasian before, so were thrilled to be able to communicate. When I went to school in China, one of my favorites was a 15-month-old baby that I saw every day. At first, she was very frightened of me, as he, like the rest, had never seen a Caucasian or someone with yellow hair. But soon we became best buddies. I love babies and had so much fun being a big sister, or Jisye. To me, that says everything about the advantage of language learning to foster world peace and understanding, taking us past fear into what we have in common. Travel promotes understanding and problem solving. One of the great advantages of doing world travel as a young child is how easy it is to see how good-hearted people are everywhere, no matter what language, what religion, what color or ethnicity, or what country or continent. Studies show that children exposed to diversity in positive ways while young have less prejudices. Nobody can speak every language, but even having one more helps, and we always learn a few words for each country. It is always really appreciated because all people are proud of their language, country, and heritage. You'd be surprised how just knowing how to say hello, goodbye, how much does that cost, and thank you can take you and help one connect. The more language you have, the easier and deeper the connection. Being the only Caucasian in a large Chinese school in Asia, being the only one without a hijab on my head in an Islamic country, being the only blonde and Caucasian in sight in Africa, seeing abject poverty, doing service projects, being the only Caucasian on a packed plane or bus, etc. These are all very different experiences than being one of the majority in the USA. I think these experiences have given me a valuable perspective that one only can get by doing. It helps you see people differently and have greater compassion and understanding of minority struggles. We just got back from Australia, and it was fascinating to once again be in a country where my race was the majority, after having spent so much time in Asia, where although it is very multicultural, It's much more rare to see a Caucasian face in the crowd. I'm grateful that I got this deep understanding firsthand as a child to understand the first world, but also the developing and third world and the diverse humanity on Earth. Use of tech versus unplugged and nature. My parents always say about tech, use it as a tool and don't let the tool use you. And I think tech is one of the greatest things today, but also something my generation must be wise about because it can be addictive. Some say the greatest luxury today is being unplugged, and we are big believers in spending lots of time in nature. One of the great pleasures of RV camping in Europe for extended time is we get to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner outside under the trees because most of our living is outdoors. I miss that when I'm living in a house. Tech today makes many things easier, and we could not do our world tour and lifestyle without it. But there are also many benefits of being unplugged and experiencing the real world firsthand, and connecting deeply in person in the local language. We don't own a smartphone and travel the world mostly by foot, bikes, or mass transit, because one can learn a lot from the ground level and the slow, natural rhythms of life. Learning through world transportation. Just using transportation around the world can be an education in itself, from my riding camels on 3 continents to cargo ships, which I love, or sailboats, trains, planes, or learning the subway system in Beijing, London, Paris, New York, Budapest, Singapore, etc. I have driven on some wild roads in Bhutan, Montenegro, Turkey, and Santorini, and biked vineyards, canoed down rivers, and cruised Norway's fjords. I had never even ridden on a bus before we left our California home, and now I'm comfortable in every mode of transportation and in any country. Life as a world field trip, pure bliss. The everyday educational opportunities on a world trip have been pretty mind-blowing because travel is an awesome way to learn. You might like my video I did myself about a day in my life when I was in Bora Bora at 10, where we couch surfed with a cool French woman who was a vet, and I got to swim with sharks, see huge turtles, and all kinds of fantastic things. It was pure bliss. A few favorite travel educational moments. This has been some of my primary school educational gems. A camel overnight trek deep in the Sahara at 6, and service projects feeding and playing violin to Berber kids there. Learning archaeology and Greek-Roman myths in Pompeii, Ephesus, Troy, Petra, Delphi, Knossos, and more. Climbing to the famous Tiger's Nest monastery in Bhutan at 10. Swimming with dolphins with marine biologists in Portugal at 8, and the Florida Keys at 11. Seeing Shakespeare at the Globe Theatre in London. Celebrating Chinese New Year at lit-up temples in Asia. Sailing the turquoise coast in Turkey and sleeping in a cave in Cappadocia. Participating in Semana Santa in Seville at Easter. Eating reindeer meat at a coda in Sweden with dear friends. Learning to surf in the North Shore of Kauai in Hawaii. Seeing world-class operas in Verona's ancient amphitheater with Placido Domingo and Franco Zeffirelli. Dissecting squid in Sausalito at a Johns Hopkins University CTY workshop. Riding a camel at Petra Jordan at 10, and the Great Wall in China at 12. Starring in a Japanese TV show on ABC that was filmed in Robinj. Seeing a ballet in Sydney's Opera House at 10, and learning the didgeridoo recently. Learning flamenco in Spain at 6, Tahitian dance in Maria at 10, and hip-hop in California at 11. Being a finalist in a singing competition in Mandarin at my 1,000 Kids Chinese High School in Asia, and winning the Chinese and English elocution contest there at 10 and 12. Singing in Mandarin at a big Chinese wedding in Asia. Learning to fly where Harry Potter did at Hogwarts. That's in Alwood Castle. In Northumberland, UK, it's 7. And visiting Harry Potter's world in Florida at 11. Don't wait until high school or university to have to learn from travel. I was 5 when we started our world trip, and I remember most of it and all of the significant things and people. My mom always found me great books that helped me learn more about our travels. Once, when we did a museum tour at the Abbey in Melk, the tour guide was shocked that I knew so much about Austrian history. That's because I love historical fiction and happen to learn a lot from them just by escaping into a good book, as reading is one of my biggest passions. My Princess Diary book about Marie Antoinette just happened to have lots of details, Austrian and French history. Books and travel are a great combo, even for little kids, and there is hardly a book or film I find today that doesn't cover or take place in a part of the world that I know well. That always makes me happy and brings back memories. All travel is good and a great way to learn without even realizing it. Vacations, school trips, study abroad programs are valuable, but they can also be expensive and I don't think as enriching as deep immersive slow travel. I hope our example encourages others to know that extensive world travel is possible for almost any ordinary family and so worth the effort. We think it's the best possible education in the world and the best way for a family to live and raise a child. I'm already planning my own round-the-world trip with my best friend in Barcelona after we finish university, and we'll travel with my future kids. Studies show that extended travel and learning languages through immersion increases creativity, and we need that in today's world. We need to deeply understand other people that share our planet, their history, culture, art, literature, music, and religions. We need to spend time in their shoes to have greater compassion and understanding of their points of view. We all need to see how gorgeous our planet is and how special and important each human being is. Then when you see a typhoon disaster in the Philippines, or nuclear disaster in Japan, or earthquake in Haiti, New Zealand, or Chile, or famine in Africa, wars in the Middle East, or pollution in Beijing, etc., etc. It's not about strangers far away, but our beloved family suffering that we must find ways to help. World travel is the best answer for a global education, and using this planet as our classroom, and today it is available to most everyone. In the near future, more and more kids will have primary years like mine. Are you ready to start planning your world trip? Here's a little inspiration. Our first video that covers our first 18 months of travel.
Okay, thanks, Mozart, and we're going to the video now. Thank you. That was absolutely wonderful, Mozart. And I wonder if people have questions now, or any comments, if you'd like to put your questions in the chat window, or if you'd like to raise your hand and ask a question via the microphone. I can turn your microphone on. I'm sure Mozart would love to answer any questions you have. I know there was one further up. Marcy asked, how long do you usually stay in one place? Mozart, do you want to start with that one first?
Hi. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is when somebody asks a question, I'll repeat it so that my parents can hear, and if I don't know the answer, then they'll tell me, and I'll tell you. Okay, so how long do you usually stay in one place? Well, it depends. It can be from a few days to a few weeks, and sometimes a few months, but longer if we're there to learn the language.
I've got a question. So what has been your favourite place so far? What is a place that you would really love to go back to and maybe even live there one day, more permanently?
What's my favorite country? Okay, so I get asked that question. That's the question that I get asked the most. So it's basically like this. So like a mother has like 10 children, right? So she can't pick which one she likes best because she loves them all in different ways. So it's the same thing.
That's a great answer. It really is. And there's one. John in New Zealand says, if my kids who were 13 and 18 when we did a 7-week around the world trip in 2003 are any indication they became global citizens, vacationing in Colombia, studying in Brazil, Vietnam, South Africa, marrying a Pakistani. So where is home? So that's a question. I bet you do get asked this one as well. So Mozart, where is home for you then?
So are you asking me, or is she asking what?
Well, I think it's sharing an experience. John in New Zealand has shared his experience, and I think he's asking you now. So after all of your travel, where do you call home?
Where do I call home? Okay. Well, I was born in California, so that's kind of like my home. But basically my home is like all around the world because I can't pick one.
And, you know, Mozart, I know what you mean because I spent 15 years travelling across 5 different countries, not as much as you've done, and my daughter was 3 when we started and 18 when we finished. And we used to talk about this as a family as well. Where is home? And Australia will always be our country of origin. But really home is where the family is. That's what we always decided, that home was where the 3 of us were, and that's where it was. So it's really hard, isn't it, when you've got so many favourite places around the world. What else? Another question here. What advice would you have for an 8 and 10-year-old about making friends and how you keep in touch with them after you leave? So you must have made lots of friends and then you moved to another country, and how do you keep in touch with friends across the world?
How do I keep in touch with friends across the world? Okay, usually through Skype and email, but that's about it. And yeah, because I have a bunch of friends here that I see almost every day, but we still talk on Skype. So Skype is the main thing.
Okay, so through Skype. Another question here. Do you ever have problems getting into countries because of visas? And I know Bhutan is a difficult one as well, so maybe ask Mum and Dad, are there any trouble, have you any challenges getting into some of these countries?
Okay, so have we ever had any trouble getting into countries because of visas? No.
Well, that's a quick answer. Good, okay. Someone else says, my daughter asked, have you been to Disneyland?
Yes, I have. Have I been to Disneyland? I just went, actually, when we were in Florida in 2011 for my 11th birthday. We went to Universal Studios and Disneyland at the same time, and we went to Disneyland for about 1 day, which is about 6 hours. And I tell you, that is not enough for Disneyland, because that place is huge. Yeah, but I've been to Disneyland when I was like a baby, like 2 or 3, in California, because we lived near Los Angeles. But so whenever we went up there for a conference, we would go to Disneyland, and that's the perfect age to go because everything is so real.
Okay, good. So a question from me then. So it looks like you go to school in these countries, but there was also a picture there of you studying at home with your laptop and books and things. So tell us a little bit about how you're managing this. So are you doing some work at home and you're going to school, and tell us what your normal sort of week looks like.
Okay, she's asking what does my normal week look like?
It varies.
Okay, so basically I've only gone to school in 4 countries, and then I homeschool the rest of the time. I'm actually homeschooling right now, but a normal week would be, you know, school, classes, and then friends on the weekends, and reading, and making stuff, and that's about it.
Sounds good. And Mozart, what's happening in the future, do you think? What are you heading towards? What do you want to do in the future?
What do I want to do in the future? Well, what I want to do is, I want to, like, I don't know really how to explain this. Let me think. I want to help people because I have, like, this experience, so I can, like, because I can speak, I want to learn a bunch of a lot more languages, okay? And once I learn them, I can help a lot more people because of my language, and I can become, like, a bridge between, like, different countries because of my languages.
Wow, that's a great ambition. Wow. And, you know, to be a bridge between people, and, you know, how fantastic. And I think we're all just in such admiration of what you're doing, and your parents supporting, you know, the family traveling around the world is just wonderful. There's one little question in the window there. Tenzing says, my 8-year-old son asks, why is Turkey called Turkey? Do you have an answer to that?
Why is Turkey called Turkey? Well, it's not because they eat a lot of turkey. But that's it. That's all I got.
That was a bit of a trick question, I think. Denise asks, when you're homeschooling, do you follow a set curriculum? What sort of things do you do for your homeschooling?
When we homeschool, do we follow a set curriculum? No, we don't. We just, like, take it, you know, as it goes. But for math, we do use the Singapore method. But that's about it.
Okay, that sounds good. Good recommendation there. There's another question. Do you dream in different languages, do you think?
Yes,
you do.
I do.
My goodness.
I do. Do I dream in different languages? I do. That I know.
Well, that must be a true sign of a true bilingual or trilingual person, I think. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah, once you start to dream in a language, you really start to pick it up. Marcy's just putting it in the chat there. Anything else? Anything other questions? Anything else you'd like to add, Mozart, at this stage?
Is there anything else I would like to add?
There's one final question here. What is the first thing you want to know about the countries you visit? So when you go to a new country, what's the first thing you want to know?
what do we know? What's the first thing we know about countries?
That you want to know.
Before
That you want to know about a country.
What? What's the first thing that you want to know about a country before you visit it? I'd say a bit of the language.
Mm-hmm. And who makes the decisions? Who makes the decisions as to which countries you go to?
Who makes the decision? Who makes the decision of which countries we go to? Oh, we all do.
Uh-huh. Great. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're pretty much done, and it's just been amazing. And we've got all of these wonderful resources we can follow you on YouTube, and we can look at your blog and your website. And I'm sure if people have got more questions, they can get in touch with you and keep a connection going, because it's just been wonderful having you speak at the Global Education Conference, Mozart. We're just so delighted that you were able to do this. And thank you once again. Well done.
Thank you.
Everyone applaud. We're going to applaud you in the top window there. And I'll stop the recording now, and thanks again.
Okay, thank you for having